Hello, welcome back. Welcome back to Send Him Off. It's another of our pre-season previews, and we are very excited for this one. In particular, we being myself, Sam, and my ever-present podcasting partner, Alex. How's it going, mate?
It's going all right. It's the final one of the session today.
It is.
I
It
feel like
is.
uh, I feel like we're playing the darts, isn't it? Is that what they say in the darts?
Yeah, I
Last
think so.
session.
Yeah.
Yeah. Final one of the session. Yeah, and we're excited for this one because it's Nottingham Forest. So we are joined
Yeah.
by Sam.
Well, we're joined by Rich from 1865, which is a Nottingham Forest podcast. We're very excited to talk about Forest. I don't know about you, Al. I am. A new
Yes.
team, a new team. I love it. And I say, Rich, this disclaimer here. I did say this to everybody last year, but Forest are actually going to be my second team this year.
And he only said it to Palace this year so
Yeah, I've
far.
only no
So
West Ham. West
oh,
Ham, I
West
said it
Ham,
to.
West
I
Ham.
don't
Yeah.
mind West Ham, and I will be looking out for Forest because they've got Steve Cooper. We're Swansea fans. I'm one of the ones that doesn't have any bad blood towards Cooper, so
Yeah.
I'm wishing him well. Uh,
As
and
am
you've got
I. I'm gonna put that I like him as well.
there we are. Rich, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's incredibly exciting, and dare I say, I'm older than you guys, so I'm old enough to remember when Forest were last in the Premier League, and
Yeah.
I'm also old enough to remember when Forest, probably in sort of late '80s, early '90s, were a lot of teams' second clubs, if you see what I mean. A lot of
Okay.
fans sort of said, "Oh yeah, they're my second favourite team," because Brian Clough. Pretty football, playing it the right way, scoring goals, Wembley every season. But that's way before both of your time, I reckon.
Yeah,
Just a
just a
little bit,
bit.
I think. Just a
Just a
little bit.
bit. Right.
We'll start with last season. So I've got written down a fourth place finish in the championship, but that doesn't really matter, does it? Because he went up
Who
via the
cares?
playoffs.
Yeah.
Everybody's favorite way to go up.
The
Nobody
best
likes going
way
up
to do it.
automatically. The playoffs are by far the best way. How would you sum up last season?
Well, I mean, fourth place doesn't even begin to tell the story, does it? So, for any of your listeners who were completely unaware of what happened to Forest last season, they lost 6 out of their first 7 matches. And Chris Hughton, an experienced championship campaigner, got sacked as the gaffer after just 1 year at the helm, and everything was looking doom and gloom. The only point we got was against Derby County. So it's quite amusing that Derby were the only team who played Chris Hughton's Forest last season and didn't manage to win. But the other thing with the Derby being a parallel is that Derby obviously had a 21-point deduction. Forest effectively had a 20-point deduction because of that bad start. And they only had 39 games left to go when Hughton went. Stephen Reid came in as the caretaker manager, managed to get the monkey off their backs, got the team playing with a bit of freedom, beat Huddersfield away 2-0, clean sheet, goals away from home. Cooper came in, Steve Cooper, who obviously you guys know very well, and it was nothing short of a revolution. And I know that it's very easy for us as football fans to resort to kind of hyperbole and talking in really extreme terms. But I can genuinely say, in what 30 something years of watching football, I've never seen anything like it at Forest. And bearing in mind that I was brought up watching Forest under Brian Clough. So it was absolutely astonishing. And you know what? You're absolutely right. Winning at Wembley, is there a better way to get promotion?
Definitely the best way
Exactly.
to go up.
True that.
Safe to say that the key man going into this season is one of our fellow Welshmen, Brennan Johnson,
Old
top
Brennan.
goal scorer, top assists last year.
Well, I mean, we're recording this a week and a bit before the season starts. And
Hmm.
obviously, people who've been paying attention to the headlines in the last 5 days might have noticed that Forest has signed Jesse Lingard. And that seems to have attracted a lot of attention and a lot of anger from other Premier League fans, it seems. But and the reason I'm excited about Lingard isn't necessarily because he's a recent England international. It isn't necessarily because he's from Man United. It isn't even all the fuss about the wages and what they're reported to be, which, from a lot of accounts, is massively exaggerated. It's the fact that we needed a number 10 and we didn't have one. So your mate Brennan, he started off in a couple of the friendlies playing as a number 10, but he's at his best when he's able to play on the last shoulder, get down the channels, put balls in, or get into the box himself. He's got loads of pace and trickery, and so playing as a number 10 ain't getting the best out of him. So we needed to get someone to fill that gap, and in Lingard we've got that. At the time of recording, I've also seen a few rumours saying that Morgan Gibbs-White, another player who you guys know,
Yeah.
Forest are very, very interested, and there's rumours that there is a possibility of a deal being done. It's an interesting one, that, because Wolves don't want to lose him. There's 5 subs in the Premier League next season, so they need every player they can get. Wolves have brought him up, so they're trying to price him out of a move. The price tag has gone up from 20 million to 25 to 30 million. Everton are involved as well. It'd be really interesting if we can sign him.
He's a name that just gets, like, if I could put one name to the pre-season that we've done so far, I'd put Morgan Gibbs-White's name, because it's
3
just
people
been,
I think have mentioned him.
yeah. I think, what was it? Nottingham,
Everton
and was it West Ham? Or
might have been
no,
Palace.
Palace.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think he needs to, because I think if he makes the right moves in his career, he will go to the top of English football. I think he will be, starter for England. He will go down as a legend if he makes his right moves. I've got no doubt about that. I know that's a bit of a big claim, but I think if Steve Cooper can work his magic, because that's how essentially he came to us, because he knew a lot of the boys from the England, was it England and 17s?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you could, like, that's the most realistic option for me, to be honest with you, is Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, and the thing about Gibbs-White, yes, obviously Cooper knows him from England and from having brought him to Swansea. I said last season, even before we had our playoff semi-final against Sheffield United, I said that Gibbs-White is the best player in the Championship.
He was
And
so good.
and that's the thing, is that he's at a stage of his career where he needs to find a home. And so I'm pretty certain that he's thinking, I can stay at Wolves, but I need to know that I'm going to play fairly regularly. And as much as Jesse Lingard is a high profile signing, I'd be surprised if he plays more than 30 matches in the season. With him and Gibbs-White and Brennan, there's the options of shifting them around a little bit. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but the whole point is that Cooper does like signing players who can have the ability to move between positions as well. You've got your fundamental positions like centre half, obviously, and central midfield, but it's important, especially across a 38 game season. There's going to be the disruption of the World Cup, which could help or hinder a lot of teams. And then the fact that Forest inevitably have got a smaller squad than a lot of Premier League other Premier League clubs. So they're going to need all the players they can get, and they're going to need players who are capable of filling more than one role.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally.
I think the business they've done so far, though, I'm looking at it now, and it's smart business. I mean, Nico Williams, we know all too well as Welshmen, obviously, and he played for Fulham last year, and he absolutely destroyed us down at the Swansea.com stadium.
Yeah.
But Lingard, Henderson, Nico Williams, even Omar Richards. I mean, he might not have played a lot for Bayern, but look at the players he's trained with, and I think that always will make a big difference. But even the likes of Wayne Hennessy coming in, I think like that in the dressing room is going to be massive. He's so experienced.
When I saw that Wayne Hennessy went to Forest, I thought, wow, actually that was a very, very smart signing, because he wasn't playing at Burnley, but he's still a top. He's an international keeper, and I know we're going to be a bit biased towards him. I'm not going to lie, but no, he's a fantastic keeper. And I think he was a brilliant replacement for Bryce Amber. Believe it or not.
It's been an interesting one, because we've got America's third choice goalkeeper has been our second choice goalkeeper for the last year, Ethan Horvath, who came in and he played 8 or 9 matches when Sambo got himself sent off. And he did really well. But obviously, again, with this weirdness of having a World Cup in the middle of the season, there are players like Horvath who's gone to Luton on loan, and you can't blame him for wanting first team football. He wasn't going to be first choice at Forest. And also, let's be honest, Premier League rules. So we needed to get more homegrown players in. Horvath doesn't count as a homegrown player. Hennessy does. So in those senses, the other thing that's been interesting is that social media isn't the best place to get opinions, but there seem to be a lot of people talking about the amount of money Forest are spending in fees and wages. But of the 3 promoted clubs, we had by far the lowest expenditure, because we were up against Fulham and Bournemouth, who both had parachute payments. So in that sense, we are blessed with an owner who is a multi-millionaire, and B, is willing to stick his hands in his pockets where the rules allow. He deliberately held off overspending because of financial fair play regulations in the Championship to avoid the kind of trouble that we've seen with the derbies and Sheffield Wednesdays. And okay, the Wigan situation was slightly different, but we've seen enough clubs get into financial trouble, not because they don't have the money, but because they haven't followed the rules. So with Forest, they've followed the rules, and now's the time to really splash the cash and give ourselves at least a fighting chance of staying up.
Definitely.
That's fair. Very,
it's
very
almost
fair.
as if Fulham, like you said, Fulham and Bournemouth spent their money last year, really, with Fulham bought in Harry Wilson. How much did they pay for him? I think it was nearly 20 million, I think,
Something
for
like
a
that.
Championship club. It was ridiculous. But
Well,
you're bringing in
it was a funny one because obviously Fulham and Liverpool have got this relationship, which meant that Wilson and Williams went there last season. But Wilson, if I remember rightly, was on loan with a guaranteed payment this year of 12 million, which will go up to 20 million with add-ons. So it's one of those whereby they kind of realised they couldn't play fast and loose with the rules.
Yeah.
But because of the amount of money they'd spent, twice in a row, they'd gone up to the Premier League and basically signed a whole new squad. But the difference is, do you do it with any strategy? Now, Forest are in a slightly different situation. We didn't have enough players for a Premier League squad because we lost 5 loanees. We had another 3 or 4 players coming to the ends of their contracts this summer. So we didn't have enough players for a squad. So we had to buy players. But also you're looking at the signings they're making. There've been quite a few players signed from France, from Germany. You need to know which markets you're operating in. You also, where we are spending big, players like Williams and Richards and Taiwo Aniwi, you could say those are players where we're maybe potentially overpaying, but you look at their age and you look at their potential, and even if we go down, hopefully we'd be able to sell them on for a profit, if not at cost. And crucially, we won't be burdened with their wages if we do go down again. And that's where maybe Fulham and Bournemouth, particularly Fulham, you could say that, and Norwich, maybe you could say that they hadn't planned so well.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally.
See, it's, like I said, it's all such smart business. But so we talked the key players. I just want to know if there's any under the radar players, sort of unsung heroes that you could pick out from this squad that people might have their eye on. Maybe a little nugget of information for fantasy football. Is there anybody you'd say chuck him in your team?
Well, what I would say is that so everyone knows about Brennan, and he would have been, the one up and coming player that everyone would have talked about, but everyone knows about him now. So I'm going to go for a Nottingham lad called Ryan Yates. Now you guys will have heard of him, and as you are fans of the Championship, you will know that Yates got absolute pelters from Forest fans for about two years. And then in the last season, he went from being this much maligned player, he can only pass it backwards. And he's morphed into this all-action number 8 who was able to break up play in his own half and then sprint forward, carry the ball, found himself in the box and added goals to his game. I think he got 8 or 9 goals last season, and probably should have been well into double figures. I mean, he should have scored in the playoff final for a start. So Ryan Yates is one. He's one who I think, because of his work ethic, he's capable of coming in and doing a job. He may not be the highest profile player, but he'll be a player who won't let Forest down.
Interesting.
That's good shout. Good shout.
Yeah. Jack Colback was another one on my list.
That
is a player that I don't think he gets as much credit as perhaps he should.
Was he at Newcastle?
Yeah, he was originally. He was at Newcastle, wasn't he? Yeah. But Yates, I like the look of him. I think he's one of these players who have been in the Championship for years, and I think he'll just suit the Premier League really, really well in Cooper's system. Is there anywhere in the table that you would be over the moon and happy with? Where would you be happy with come May?
Sort of dreamland area.
Yeah, I mean, realistically 17th, but I was asked to fill in something on behalf of our podcast, which is going to go in the Observer's Premier League preview, I think this weekend. And so I said that actually 15th would be a really good statement of intent in terms of rebuilding a squad, letting a young up and coming manager impose himself in the Premier League, get used to it. There's going to be probably as many downs as ups when you come straight up from the Championship, especially after such a long absence. So 15th would be good. I will also give an honourable mention to Stephen from our podcast, who, when I put it in our WhatsApp group, he just said, we're going to be 11th. It's like, wow, okay.
That's interesting.
There's a sharp intake of breath from the rest of the group.
we did our prediction earlier on today, and we've stuck Forest 12th.
Wow.
Above Leicester.
Yeah, above Leicester, above Brighton, Southampton, Everton, obviously. But yeah, those sort of teams.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, of course, Leicester haven't signed anyone, and it looks as if they're about to lose their skipper. At time of recording, there's all this talk about Kasper Schmeichel moving to France. So they can't afford to lose players, and they haven't signed any. Just like I said about Wolves, I think Wolves are going to be in trouble because their squad isn't big enough. And with 5 subs, we're going to see that having an impact. Leeds is potentially an interesting one. They've made some good signings, but my brother, who is on our podcast, he lives in Leeds, and he's saying the fans absolutely hate Jesse Marsch. So if they have 2 or 3 poor results in a row, then will they feel the need to pull the trigger? So there's a lot. And then you've got teams like Southampton, where Southampton are sort of perpetually kind of lower mid-table, but you know that they're going to get tanked maybe 3 or 4 times in a season. And so if you're able to be a steady Eddie of a team, then it does give you a chance. And it's quite interesting, I think, to think about some of those teams. And I say, more so than any other season, I think squad size is going to be really, really important.
Yeah, definitely.
It'll be a big player.
As you said, 17th. Is it a case of let's just stay up this year and then we build next year, or are you sort of secretly inside thinking I'd be a little bit disappointed if we don't finish like 15th or above?
Is there room to think like that? Is there room to think like that for a newly promoted? Not new. I know you're not new to the Premier League overall, but in recent years you haven't been there. So as a newly promoted side, is there room to be able to think like that, or do you
Alex,
just want to stay there?
we might as well be a newly promoted side. You know, like it. Again, as part of this preview, I was asked which grounds are you looking forward to going to see, and I'm going, I have no idea what any of the grounds are like anymore because it's 23 years. And he said, well, I went to watch Guns N' Roses play at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I just seeing that stadium, and it was just like an absolute quantum leap from the stadiums I've been seeing in the Championship. Going to Wembley was completely different to when I went
You're
to Wembley
used to like
1992.
Luton Town and all that. I know, used to going up Luton and going through the back end of the terraces.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it's a completely different situation. And so, no, you can't really compare with last time in the Premier League. What I would say is that as a fan, naturally, you get fans who are overly optimistic and you get fans who are naturally pessimistic. And I definitely fall into the latter camp. And therefore, it's just like, as long as we're doing okay, as long as we're solvent and we stay up, then that would be an absolute victory. But the club themselves are aiming higher. Our owner is also the owner of Olympiakos, team who win the Greek league every year. They're in the Champions League every year. And he knows that there's a ceiling as to what he can achieve with Olympiakos. So now he's set his sights on what can he do to make Forest a real player in English football. So that's coming through investment. The first 3 or 4 years of the owner's tenure were really messy. And that's down to the fact that they didn't have a decent strategy and they had the wrong man running the club. So the chief executive stepped aside. He's still on the board of directors. He's apparently very good at negotiations and contracts and business deals, but he wasn't very good at the football side of things. So we've got a football man in as the chief executive, a guy called Dane Murphy, who was the chief exec of Barnsley the season that they made the playoffs. So you have to get all of your pieces into place. And it feels for the first time in a long, long time that Forest actually have got the strategy maybe to back up what's going on the pitch. And of course, time will tell. But I'm hoping that, you know, if a club is badly run, then they're not going to have success and the players aren't going to be happy. And as an example, you can look at Man United as an example there. Why would Jesse Lingard want to leave Man United? well, why would he want to? Why is he underperformed except when he was at West Ham? At West Ham, he felt wanted, he felt happy. At Man United, he felt like his career was going backwards, and that's why Man United aren't as big a draw as they used to be. And that's because Man United as a club are perhaps arguably not being run in a coherent way. So if Forest can get those off the pitch things right, and then they've got a manager and coaching staff, and they're building a squad of players who can do things on the pitch, then yeah, fingers crossed, there can be some good success.
There we are. On that note, Rich, before we finish, can you give us a number, a bona fide prediction, put your neck on the line and give us an exclusive? Where will Forest finish this season?
I think I've already said it. I'm gonna go 15th, but everything's up for grabs.
Okay, there we go.
I like it.
15th
with optimism, that was.
Yeah.
Which
that was a happy 15th, and I like it.
I like that. I will certainly be keeping an eye out and watching, because there are quite a few Welshmen in that squad at the minute, not to mention Steve Cooper. So best of luck for the season. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It was lovely to chat to a new squad, new guest and a new team. So hopefully we'll be welcoming you back next year if you do finish 15th or higher. Would you like to take a couple of moments just to let the listeners know where they can find the podcast, where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, so obviously you can search on your usual podcast app for 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. We do most of our social media via Twitter, which is twitter.com/Nottam, NOTTM_Forest. And we've also, for our other social links, which is TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, if anyone's still using that, you can go to Linktree. So it's linktree.ee and then /Nottam_Forest. That's nice and easy to read out, isn't it?
There we are.
Lovely. Well,
there we go.
You managed that far better than me.
I think you've given us our first link tree. Nobody's ever given us a link tree before. We've got one, haven't we? But
we have got one. Yeah, I don't know.
No one ever plugs it.
Though.
No one ever plugs it.
But no, Rich, thank you. It's been a pleasure, mate. We'll catch you next year, hopefully. Best of luck for the season.
Me.
No problem at all.
Thank you guys for listening again. Alex, another day done for us. We'll be back.
Another session over with.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow.
We'll be back tomorrow.
If you're listening, you'll catch the next pre-season preview, which I think is Spurs. Is Spurs.
But maybe not.
It might not be, but follow us on Twitter @SendHimOffPod and Instagram @SendHimOffPodcast, and we'll be posting about it on there. So you'll see whether I'm right or whether I've just made a little bit of a tit of myself.
Again.
Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you soon. Ta-ra.
Take care.